Okay, welcome everyone. Hi, my name is Morgana Marie and I am joined with Natalia. Welcome to the Possibility podcast, where we are going to take you on an infinite exploration of activating the potential and possibilities of you. Let's shift the perception of limitation together and reclaim our connection, knowledge, power, and knowing to not just access our highest truth, but achieve our greatest reality from ease of receiving and shift from a control reality to a choice universe. We aim for our episodes to be a limitless playground of joy, for you to gain awareness to fully embrace who you are unapologetically. By listening alone, you'll receive the tools and processes to make a paradigm shift to a world where you get to access more of you, the authentic you, confidence in your gifts and abilities in every episode. Natalia is a co-founder of the Possibility podcast and is a passionate student of Psychology BSc, personal development coach, and master energy healer.
Yeah, hi
Welcome.
everyone. Thank you, Morgana, for introducing me. I also going to introduce Morgana as well. Morgana is a master energy healer, sacred success and magnetic leadership coach, psychic consultant, and medium. And she also teaches impact-driven and ambition leaders, soul-led leaders, and how to live, lead, love, on purpose without sacrifice, and is a spiritual advisory for business all over the world. So it's a real honor to be in this podcast together. So yeah, guys, we're just gonna go with energetics, whatever flow. So as we said, we're
Absolutely.
gonna be using subtle. We're gonna explain first of all, right, Morgana, how. So we thought that it's really good to bring this forward because we believe that
Yes.
out there is so much of this language of healing, energy, energetics. So what it is like, could you explain us, Morgana, please, a little bit of how this is more of a grounded way to see it, right? So how people can introduce and apply this perhaps to their well-being, because I feel like it's quite important, right, to kind of bring it forward and just explain. So yeah,
Yeah.
so our audience can kind of relate and say, oh yes, I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's a great way to start because
Mm.
energy is universal. Energy is everything. Our first language is energy. It's how babies communicate. So when we connect with a baby, they can't speak. You interact, engage with them energetically. And do you know like what they need? Most of the times you do. And it's following that energy and knowing. So that's the best way I like to explain it, and how you can actually perceive energy from a child, because a child can't speak or baby can't speak. And energy is everything we are. It's behind the language that we use. It's how we speak. It's behind the words that we use on a daily basis. It's how we act. It's how we move through our whole life. Do we live our life present, or are we kind of racing ahead and we're not present? The more present we are, I feel like we're more connected energetically, and we can really start to understand energy and communicate energetically with people around us, with ourselves. And it does take some practice. I'll be honest, it's not something I was aware of back many years ago, was energy.
Form of communication, isn't it? It's almost as developing a subtle language behind what we
Yeah,
say. I think people often, when you say communication, they think of what we say, but we can say
yeah,
so many things, can't we? Like, is the body expression of somebody, is the energy, and the energy is the first thing that speaks for someone, right? So
yes,
definitely.
yes. I also, a perfect example would be, you would go into a room and you would be able to sense, does it feel light in that room, or does it feel heavy in the room? And you have that instant perceiving straight away, but you might not be aware that you do, but you do. So it's like paying attention to those moments. The more you acknowledge it and pay attention, the more aware you are of energy. Yeah,
And the less of
yeah,
thinking, perhaps, that is just all in our mind, because I think I would be one of those people, my past self, right? I'd be like, oh, well, maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'm feeling this way.
yes,
but actually often people are saying something, but energetically they're speaking something else, I think. And it's really, I think, interesting, right, to bring this forward, because when you say energy work, people get lost in translation, but actually it's something they're doing unconsciously all the time
Yes.
and ignoring, because they believe that that is just something they imagining, and then someone else mentions it, like, oh my god, I know what you're talking about, that happened to me, or maybe I haven't had the opportunity to tap into that. So I think is, so what about, right, so when, for example, in terms of the kind of coaching, right, so if you can take us a little bit, so what would you say is the one thing that makes a difference when you bring this coaching towards a person, that comes to you and is asking for some advice or some direction, perhaps in their business? How would you describe the energetic side of that, right? So how would you explain that to us? How is that something that they need and is practical to the practice as well, and the consultancy, obviously?
Yeah, I do think it's so required. Having coaching alone is wonderful. It's a great tool, but having the energetics with it as well will not only enable you to shift where you're feeling maybe blocked or stuck in your life, but it's consistent and persistent changes, and that doesn't have to come from a place of uncertainty or scarcity. It can come from like an empowerment place of empowerment, and having that shift of energy where we're moving limiting beliefs or beliefs that are actually locked in our bodies, and we have this belief system, these structures that we have that are running our life on autopilot, basically, for example. That's kind of one way of understanding. Then the more you shift out of that autopilot and you move from this energetic, more from doing, and you're more in your being energy, yeah, you just have a lot more ease in your life. You have more sense of certainty. You have more knowing. You'll have more control, I feel, about where you go in your life, what steps you take, what direction you're going forwards with. And that energy aspect of it is just it's so subtle, but it's compacted. It often is very dense, and we can feel very heavy, and this can cause pain in our bodies. And this is a manifestation, really, of blocked energy in the body, in our aura, in our physical body, and that gets created from those limiting beliefs or energies that we kind of take on from our interactions on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting, right? That perhaps someone comes to a consultancy like about business and it ends in the trauma of the fifth generation behind you, and you manifesting as an expression of business, right? Or a relationship or anything that the person might be sort of bringing forward to the session, right? Because sometimes they might know, they might not know, and it's a quite interesting paradigm, I think, like in regards of all the coaching techniques and stuff, because you just receive the space for the person, right, and just
Yes.
follow what comes without too much mind into it. So
Yes.
super interesting.
Yeah. And as someone that has yourself, dive so deep into these tools yourself. What would you say has been a yeah, what have you learned? Because you mentioned how skeptical you were, and you were kind of very like, I'm not into this world, like many, many kind of years
Oh,
back.
guys,
And
just
what
please
would you
know
say
this
to the
podcast is
skeptics?
going to be very interesting, because Morgana is the one that is really flowing. Myself, I'm like, my path was more of the one of resistance, in which sometimes,
Mm,
I think I can resist, but, I think the energetic side that you mentioned is really interesting. I think the one thing I learned is, yeah, the mind, it's good to have a linear intellectual mind, and perhaps some structure into things is definitely the
yeah,
way, at least myself, I work that way. But also it's quite interesting because myself, I would probably say, there is intellect, IQ, and then there is intuition. It's like our
yeah,
brain is what channels, but also has modalities. And that, often in society we come from the era of like intellect and ABC and logics and give me this and like how articulated your idea is, right? And it's always a good thing, but also the more you try to solidify ideas, I think, is the more it brings a lot of limitation, right? Because I just
Yeah.
only expect things to happen that way. And that can be a good thing, but it can also limitate me from receiving other things that might come in a total different way of form. So the more I resist that, the more I suffer, basically. So
Yes.
that's where the
Yes.
energetics comes. That would be my description to that. That would be when I say energetics, it's like that description you told us, and it's totally on point, but also the allowance, I think, of not just being restricted to one paradigm, but to be also open to other modalities. And I think that is the part where myself and my skepticism felt like I had to let that part die and just go and just
Yeah.
allow me to expand and be like, okay, this would take me to A, B, and C, but ultimately the intuition will take me anywhere. And that's where I want to be. That's where I want to go. And I think, right, like as coaches, we just need to think that way. We need to adapt because your people will come with total different needs and perspectives, perhaps, right? It's something that we might not
Absolutely.
understand, but really it's not about our mind, it's about the space we hold and what they bring with themselves, and then us being a mirror and saying, okay, this is what it is, and this is the options you
Yeah.
got, and here's your free will. Here's your free will, but it's a
Yeah.
conversation for another podcast.
Yeah.
But
We said about
exactly, because we can get given an advice, as when you go for advice to your friend, but I guess it's more like, would the friend actually take that? Is that person ready to receive that? That's a different story. That's the homework and the active participation of the person into developing and going forward, right? I
that. Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. And everyone has their own free will choice, and
Yeah,
we're always choosing. And
exactly.
that's absolutely, that's key to know. You can be a guide and a facilitator of someone's growth, but ultimately there's the ones with the choice. We can't choose for them either, and there's always that free will. And so, yeah, definitely an interesting topic to dive into in a different episode.
Of course, this is just the beginning, but we thought, right, Morgana, we need to bring this forward and just clarify,
Yeah.
because I think it's such a valuable tool. And I think when you're so passionate about these things, right, it makes so much change to your life that you want to share it. It's wanting to share
Yes.
that excitement and saying, guys, this is
Yes.
amazing. And it might not work for everyone. Like things work differently for different people, but the tools and the things that we learn are global things, and they have helped people in major scales. And this is, especially what Morgana does, helping globally, these sort of things, this sort of business. And it's a total not only allowance, but it's a gift, isn't it? Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, you want to bring anything else in terms of perhaps, so now you say the energetics, right? But what
Mm.
about the part of the healing, right? Because that's another terminology that I feel like people get lost in translation, right? When we say,
Um,
okay, there's energy healing, and then people be like, all right, lovely.
yes.
And it either dies there, or they just be like, oh my God, tell me more about it. Like, do you practice a
Mm.
modality? Some people is kind of familiar with the fact of that there are different ways to practice that. But let's kind of bring it perhaps to that audience that don't have an idea of what energy healing is, and the role of that into the coaching space, right? In
Yeah.
this case.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, in simple terms, if you imagine someone was very, or if you imagine like compression in a bottle, and this bottle was getting compressed and compressed and compressed and compressed, it would eventually explode because the bottle couldn't hold that much pressure in it anymore. That's how energy can be in the body. You're not going to explode, by the way, guys. I mean, you might do because you have proton.
Boom.
To let you know.
Don't worry, it might result in some fever or, some sort of cold or something. That's what we call disease, but by the way, which is
Yeah.
emotion trap and energy trap in the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another way to translate that, in other words.
Yeah, absolutely. And there can be this compression and this tension, this pain. And if that does not get dispersed, that's when you result in, like you say, the disease, the illness, this pain. And we don't want pain. We want to be able to feel light and free and lifted, uplifted, energized, and unstoppable. So by moving this energy through the body, you can do this in so many ways. You can do it with touch alone. You can use different tools like NLP. We do theta healing. There's like bars. There's so many different tools. You can enable this energy to shift and disperse quite rapidly and very quickly. And it doesn't have to take years and years and years and years and years. I honestly believe it doesn't have to take years and years and years of therapy to change something. And this is ultimately the goal of this work, is to make changes quicker, so you can get to where you want to be quicker and have the fulfillment and happiness now, not like years and years and years and years down the line, because energy ultimately blocks your receiving. If you're blocked
It's like the
energetically,
turbo into the therapy we wanted to kind of say in other words, right? It's like
yeah,
therapy without energy work could be an approach, right? But I probably,
yeah,
yeah, what you're saying to us is kind of like by doing it this way, is kind of allowing more elements into it that perhaps are not
yeah,
even cognitive, right? But they
yeah,
might speed up the process and ultimately give the gift of improvement to a person, right? Like that is a quite interesting one to bring, because
yeah,
that is a good point, right? Like that is the number one thing when people, at least myself in my experience, when I have chat with people that got no idea into what this is about,
yeah,
and often it's quite frustrating, right? Because you say, oh my god, I
yeah,
need a podcast for this, I really need half an hour to be able to tap you know into all these topics, so a person kind of has a little bit of kind of a taster of what this is about, because it's not that simple to explain, right? I feel like
yeah,
it is so broad. It's a big umbrella of so many elements and modalities, like you said, and even per people, because you know, ourselves, we practice almost the same sort of modalities, but our approach to healing is totally different.
yeah,
It's totally different, and this is also the gift of that, right? Because you might receive the person providing that space and channeling, but also the person will bring the gift of that person into it and show ultimately the person, okay, but this is your gift and this is my job is to show it to you. So now it's up to you what you do with this, But it's so interesting, that kind of, yeah, point that you touch upon, which is,
mm.
yeah,
I mean, everything has its place in the world. It absolutely does. And, it's not about disregarding things. It's just about everything contributes. And what I've found is you go on the journey of search and seek and find, and you try different things. And that's not wrong. That's your body's way of navigating, like, what's next? What's next? What else is like available for me that I need to try now? So that's a great way that the body kind of knows what it's doing and navigating through that journey of healing. But healing is one of these words that gets thrown around, and a lot of people kind of get very like afraid of the word healing. It's not there's
yeah,
something wrong with it, that you need to be fixed. It's not that. It's more about, you are your own healer. You have the ability to like alchemize anything and change anything internally. But healing ultimately is this phrase that is about moving and shifting something from, negativity to positivity ultimately. But it's not about polarity. It's more about getting out of pain and resolving it, but actually moving past that pain and actually creating something way greater, way better, and living your life beyond that. So that's the
way,
ultimate. It's about really getting to who
yeah.
you are underneath all this pain and layers and conditioning and beliefs that you take through your whole life, and finding who you are. That's what it is. It's not that there's something wrong with you or you need to be fixed.
That's it. That's so interesting. It's more like a strength-based approach, I would probably say, than, because
Yes.
it's true. Healing can also bring, I think myself, when I was that kind of a skeptic person back in the day, my cousin, every time I went home, would take me to a different type of person that was practicing some kind of energy work. And she knew I was a bit reluctant. So she wouldn't use the word healing, because I would probably like roll eyes and be like, here we go. But she would rather say,
Yes.
"Oh, let me take you to a reflexologist, or let me take you to someone who does acupuncture, or let me take you, And then I would say, that sort of term will give my brain a point of reference. right? A
Yeah.
point of reference to say, oh, I know that, that's familiar, that, or that maybe is not familiar, but that has some form of structure into things, right? Than just
Mm.
something that has no definition, like healing and like yourself, like you said, right? Like it will bring me this unconscious picture of me being having to be like fixed, like almost. And it's, yeah, I think it's really important to convey that, I think, to people, to that healing is just a broader way to see things that is not limited to a definition perhaps, or yeah, or something too, I don't know, solid, like something that we all know that might be true. But it's like, it's also probably a path of self-discovery, maybe, and finding
Yeah.
answers for yourself, by yourself, and then perhaps the healer or the coach being that person guiding that process. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting.
It's fascinating. I mean,
Super
ultimately,
fascinating.
we've done so many sessions together now, haven't we, Natalia? And we mirror
Yeah,
each other a lot,
yeah,
and it's fascinating. We're like looking at myself, and
yeah,
I'm like, wow, what else is it's amazing to have that because you
yeah,
see yourself through someone else's eyes in a way,
yeah,
and that is can be quite confronting at times. However, it's empowering because you're able to go into it with open eyes. And if you can go into that with no points of view and just actually go in and look at that and be like, what have you got for me, show me, you'll have so much more fun. And it's much more of a journey of exploration rather than a dread of, I really have to do this because someone told me to, or if like I have to or should do.
yeah,
And it comes from this place of need and obligation, so that can feel heavy, and that's where it kind of goes into there's something being wrong. But if you can do it from a place of, wow, well, wonder what I will discover about me today, it's so much lighter. Even if you just feel into that energy now, it's a lighter energy.
yeah, yeah. And it gives you that gift of taking you to different, it's like, I will probably describe, I love analogies. It's like you being stuck in a problem situation or problem solving paradigm, as I will call it. It's more like sort of that feeling that we all sometimes feel, like you're stuck in something, you're stuck in a relationship, you're stuck in a job situation where you don't see anything else. And, well, that sounds very familiar to me at the moment. So talking about myself, guys, by the way, but if someone relates, welcome be, whoever
Absolutely.
you are, buddy, there, I got you,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also that ability of the person in front of you to take you out of that summit and put you somewhere else, right across. And now you can see the whole thing from a totally different perspective and being like, oh my gosh, like, how have I missed all those 10 things that I literally did not see? It's like the tree that covers the forest almost, right? You've been so
Yeah.
fixated on that for so long. But the difference
Yes.
is that when you do energy work, you live so fast that that tree doesn't stay there for too long, So I can't quite imagine anymore my life with the old paradigm of me trying to solve things from my own mind. That, to
Yes.
me, is something that I'm so grateful every day when I wake up and I think I got the tools that, if I'm ever stuck in a situation, I can also self do it myself. And of course, but always it's going to be we humans at the end of the day, and we need sometimes a fresh pair of eyes. And it's really important to have someone out there to get that and to say, this is what is happening, or even ask you a question, right? Sometimes it's a matter of just one question that the person can just totally shift what else is possible in a situation than just this situation, just
Yeah.
and that is the total gift of that, I think.
The gift
you
of
know
questions. It's just
the question, living in
amazing.
the
It's a
question.
question guide. You might not like that. It's a question, but it is. It's like, yes, a question can create, but it's not just any question though, is it? It's a
Yeah,
particular kind of questioning.
and
Yeah.
really being vulnerable, right? Because there is that element, like, when you go to a therapy session, for example, and there's always going to be this kind of nervousness around something. But with the energy work, it's quite interesting because you find things or ways to resist for instance, before this podcast, I was saying to Morgana before we started recording, that something really interesting happened. And I got upset, something unexpected with a person. And, you know, we asked these questions, is it anger or potency, And I was like, I think it's potency because my body felt lighter. And that's a way of pendulum the energy, right? And then when I looked into the whole thing, asking a couple of questions, I was so, in a way, it's like this resistance of being seen, of being listened, of being heard, and probably maybe even knowing perhaps that someone out there might say, "Oh my God, that resonates with me. That is what I needed to hear today." But someone else might say, "This is total rubbish. I don't know what this person is talking about." And by the way, what we're talking about is not total cognitive, guys. It's very energetic, just so you know. But
Yes.
if you also
Yes.
get it, cognitively, well done, because you've done a lot of work on yourself, you know. And this is everyone. I think we all, even before going to a meeting at work, if you wanted, you will get that. But with the tools and with the energy work, it's going to be more of a subtle sort of, you know, way to transit the situation, where I think mind wise you will blame it on something else, the person that made you upset, the bus that you lost, the train that you lost and came 10 minutes after. But if you actually see the gift of the situation, what is the beauty behind this, what's the gift behind this, your life will change, right? So it's one of probably the best gifts that you also get me, Morgana, in the sessions. And I was like, oh, how does it get any better than that? Like, oh, I was just wasting so much time getting upset, and now, oh, what's the gift of this situation? But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. This is really, this is what it's about. It's about if you're willing to be vulnerable with yourself
Yeah,
and unhide everything about you, then you're doing the work. You're doing the work by even listening to this podcast. So would
definitely.
you acknowledge that? And even us showing up, we're doing the work here right now. We're having to just channel, and we're just speaking. We don't have a script. We're just speaking from whatever
This
needs to
is
come
zero
through.
script, guys. This is total random, and we know that most of you today need to hear this. And we really hope that whatever that is, has given something. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, is there
Yeah.
anything else, Morgana, to add into the energy modalities, energy work, anything that you want to share to all of us, perhaps? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most people will be like, where do I even start? Oh my God, there's so many things to choose from. Well, choose
Mhm.
what's light, choose what's fun, choose what's drawing, where you're feeling called to do. It's not going to be wrong if you choose to go and get Reiki, or it's not going to be wrong to go and choose to do meditation. There's something in it for you. So don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Just go and try something different and see what creates. That's really it, I would say, as a starting point.
Or even asking what will contribute to more, or who will contribute
Absolutely.
to more, right? Because even
Absolutely.
judging a therapist, I think we were having this chat as well recently with a person I knew. How do I know I got the right therapist for me? And sometimes I say,
Mm,
you just know.
you know.
But there's also two things can happen. You like the person the first time you see the person or talk to the person or the energy of the person, or the person triggers the shit out of yourself, and that's also a good sign.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you pay,
Yes.
guys, remember, you pay a person to do that. That is the job. That is what we do. We address, but we also trigger things in people, and that's totally fine, whether that's a session or 10 sessions. Doesn't really matter. Some people get it as much as they're willing to get it, and that's totally fine. It's allowance. There's no judgment, and there is a personal path of development. And there is no wrong or right. It's just what feels right.
Yeah. Yeah. And always being in awareness of if the energy does change, then be willing to say, okay, energy's changing, what's required now? Because you make, if you can create your life in like 10-second choices, I mean, it's not the way that anyone lives normally, but the more you have choice in your day and you keep choosing, the quicker you will get through the pile of shit basically that you have in your life, and move to a place of so much lightness, So be kind to yourself by listening in and just following that without kind of getting too caught up in the logic and the analytics and overthinking it. It's very easy to go there, but it's just that first initial intuitive nudge. Don't doubt it, just go for it and go for it, because it's that anticipation but also the resistance that you need to acknowledge to be able to get to the next point. So yeah, it can be uncomfortable and unwavering energy, and it's never always just a straight road. We have so many expectations about what our healing journey should look like and where we should be, and all the points of views about what age you are, and you should be here by now and get to that point by now. And yeah, just you're just going to kind of create your own blocks if you're going to go down that path. So just follow your knowing there and then, without doubting it. I've done that so many times. I never followed my knowing. So
Yeah,
I
or
would
the
say,
knowing, or perhaps, it's like the logic wins. But I think, as a very logical person myself, I would say stay with your mind for as long as you need, but allow it
yes,
as well to move away and feel it in your
yes,
body. What is your body telling you? What is
yes,
your knowing, your intuition telling you? Because that is also where the dissonance happens sometimes, right? What we believe to be right, but we can be right or we can be happy sometimes. And that is a fine line, isn't it? Like, being right,
yes,
it can be ultimately very ego rewarding, and that's totally okay. But would that create more tension in me? Because you will know it, guys. You will feel it in the body, You will feel when
yeah,
something is not true because it's tense and it's heavy. But if your intuition says that this is the way, then follow your intuition, because often what happens is that we wish we did and we didn't, and we were right and we knew it, but we didn't want it to be right, because the worst case scenario is that I'm right and I lose everyone and I get alone, and I evolve in my ever living path of spirituality or whatever it is, and all these fears that are totally rational. We always tend to like what we're familiar with, even if that is toxic sometimes.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but if it's also an act of courage and being brave, really, to explore other things. Perhaps if you have a judgment, that's also fine, but really be able to move past that and say, okay, I'm going to give it a go. Maybe this is something new, something I should try, something that might surprise me, or maybe no.
yeah.
It's totally individual and unique, I think, for each person. So,
Absolutely. Everyone's different. Everyone's on their own journeys and their own, yeah, on their own experiences, riding the train, wherever they're doing, wherever they're going. They're all on their own paths. But we can certainly don't do it alone. I would say certainly don't do it alone. It's very easy to kind of prove yourself that you need to do it alone to kind of be strong and be resilient. But yeah, know that you can have happiness and joy, success, all of that from letting people in, letting something different in, and having people contribute to you. Because that took me, well, till I was 37 to realize that it was actually really great to have people supporting me and guiding me, and
yeah, but we never get
um,
asked, isn't it? We never get taught that having help
yeah,
is actually a thing. I think we grew
yeah,
up in a world that everyone's supposed to know and have figured it out what they're doing, and no one does. And I
mhm,
think the
mhm,
more probably familiar, the more you become familiar with energetics, the more you allow yourself not to have all the answers. Perhaps, what if you don't have all the
yes,
answers? How lighter that feels, because you can allow something else to come in. It's like pouring a
yes,
cup, isn't it? It's like one of my first self-development courses I did. I remember there was this analogy the guy gave I really, really like. And it was about the young guy visiting the sage and wanting to know everything there was to know. And then the sage
mm,
basically got him a cup of tea, and then he literally started pouring tea until the cup was literally, there was tea everywhere, and he made a massive mess. And the guy's like, stop, stop, the tea's going everywhere. And basically, the sage said, this is what knowledge is like. You need to unlearn in order to learn something new. Sometimes you need to break with
yes,
everything you know in order to allow something new to move you towards a different direction. And this is what happens, isn't it, when we face problems now in society like depression, anxiety, you
yeah,
know, all these things. Maybe there is something that we're missing, which is that sort of not having to be right, not having to know all the answers, not having to have our shit together. Maybe we don't have our shit
Absolutely.
together,
Oh my
and
goodness. Yeah,
that's also okay, right? Like,
it's
and the
okay.
gift of saying, you know what? Maybe even just sometimes in my worst times, I have to just look up and say, universe, show me something different. Just I need ease with this because it's so hard. I can't put up with all this. It's too difficult. It's too heavy. You know,
Yeah,
but when you start doing that, things happen very quickly, guys. They move very, very quickly. And someone rings
yeah,
you, or, you meet a new
yep,
friend, or that right person comes through, that coach, or whatever. So, really be open for those things, because it's not just as simple as just saying you're demanding something and it's happening. It happens. But really, it's so true. Like, remember that analogy. I remember it's a really old one. You can be right or you can be happy, and I think I
I love
choose to
that.
be light and happy than being right.
Same.
I mean, I can be
I think
right
it's
as well.
true.
What we can be all of it, guys. We can be all of it.
We can be
Okay,
all of
we
it.
all
Yeah,
have
yeah, we can be all of it.
our no.
Yeah, but being driven by your joy is like way more fun.
Yeah, and
We
it's
were told
contagious,
it's not.
and it's
Yeah, it's
contagious.
contagious.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
And it's
contagious.
okay to have and be joyful at the age of whatever you are. If you're watching this and you're over 65 and you're thinking, joy? What joy doesn't exist for me? I'm like 65 years old. Everything that is, just let it go, because honestly, at your age of 65, I just sense there's some like older people watching this. You have the ability to unlock your joy again and like tap into your inner child, and yeah, let them come play and have fun. Just because you're a certain age, it's what's
Yeah,
true. Just come and have play, come and have fun. It's time.
actually,
So
it should never die.
yeah,
There's always a way to be. But yeah, absolutely. No, that was an amazing chat of insights, Morgana. But is there anything else you want to add to anything you feel perhaps that the audience is needing to know about energy work? Or
yeah. I think I feel like it's just really about being with it, being with the energy of it, and not having to have a certain XYZ result.
hmm,
Let go of your expectations of what the energy work's going to create for you, because when you let go of the expectation of what it's going to create, you actually create so much more.
yeah,
So it's very easy to go into a healing session going, I want to get this result out of it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're just open, like how much better have our sessions been when we've just been like, you know what, just go with the flow and
just go with the
just
flow.
like see what's possible, and like I'm all yours, and you can just and you just put it's just those sessions are just immense. They're amazing. So have the awareness of trying and something different without expectation or decision or conclusions too much, and yeah,
Let
so
go of
much
the
more
need
will
of
show up.
control, guys. The need of control is a killer as well.
Yes,
We all have. I do. I
yes,
do. I'm not gonna say anything. I do something I'm working constantly on, but
same, yeah,
ultimately you go for what you want and you receive what you need. Let's say it this way. With
yeah,
energy work, you will get exactly what you needed. Spot on.
yes,
Nothing more,
yeah,
nothing less than that. It's just an
yeah,
experience. But of course, you might go in a session in a place and say, oh, well, today I would like to get more clarity on that or that.
yes,
But I think as well, like, you might ultimately receive what you need, which is nothing better in this world than sitting in a place and just receiving something and not having to even talk about. Because myself in therapy, in conventional therapy, when I was younger, I hated to have to talk about everything. Oh, tell me more about this, or tell me more about that. Whereas in an energy session, it's just so light. The person enters and oh, you know what? It's literally like entering a house and starting to clean stuff and clutter that no one needs anymore. And you just didn't even know you had that clutter in that corner. It's just to be removed.
it's quite playful actually. Yeah. Just get rid of that. Just get rid of that.
Literally. And the person is like, oh my God, that feels so much lighter.
You know, I
Yeah.
didn't do anything. I just touched you. I didn't even do anything. I just, just new
It's
person.
spring cleaning.
Yeah, let go of your expectations about what it will create, and because it's. I've lost my train of thought, but I would say that it would. yeah, you receive so much more from that place of surrender and just, yeah, receiving. And yeah, that's what I would say. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have
Yeah.
any questions for us, please reach out. You
Or
can find
anything,
us.
any topics you like us to dig into. We have a couple of topics we'll bring, but if there is
Yes.
anything that anyone feels like, oh my God, I heard that thing so many times and I've got no idea what that is, bring it forward, and then we will tap into what you mean and then just give you exactly what you need. Verbally, obviously,
Absolutely.
but also energetically, who knows? All of it.
Yes, all of it. Um, do you have a place where people can reach out or find you?
So our platforms, my platform is Instagram, is the holistic project, and yeah, just book your clarity call if you need anything. Just taking on some new limited coupons. But yes, please reach out. And myself and Morgana, Morgana as well. Where can these people find you if they need you?
Yeah, mainly on my website, morganamarie.com, but we're going to be on Riverside and put our episodes on there. So please give us a follow and share this episode with anyone that you know could really benefit from receiving this. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you, Morgana, for hosting and holding this space for all of us.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye bye.